live from Dublin and around Ireland. Theatre takes centre stage. Streaming live and focusing on the issues. The art, the craft, the makers. News, hot topics, and artist features. From theatremaker.ie.
Tonight I'll be talking to Michelle Carew, Director of Youth Theatre Ireland, and Veronica Coburn, Artistic Director of the National Youth Theatre Ensemble. We will be talking about the place and importance of youth theatre and how it nurtures and inspires our young theatre makers in Ireland. I'll then be joined by Jack Reardon. Jack, who began his journey with Stagecraft Youth Theatre in Clonmel, is now a theatre director. Jack is also now the Artistic Director of Stagecraft. We'll be looking at the role youth theatre plays in a more rural setting. Finally, I'll be speaking to Tony McClean-Fay, Artistic Director of Bearcheek Theatre Company and County Wexford Youth Theatre. He will be joined by Laura Flynn and Judith Allen, also on tonight's show, Nancy Harris, Amaya Gillespie and Roxanna McClean. In for Amy Kidd, I'm Kelly O'Doherty, and this is Stage Door Live for the 1st of July 2020. Hello and welcome back to Stage Door Live, episode 12. I'm Kelly O'Doherty, in for Amy Kidd this week. Not to worry, if you watched last week's episode, you know this was planned. First things first, a big thank you to everyone who has joined our new Patreon community. Your support is invaluable, and of course we love connecting with our viewers, so do check out our Patreon page and keep chatting to us on social media. We love hearing from you. It's been a very busy few weeks for news, and this week has been no different, so let's take a look at the headlines. The big news on everyone's mind this week, regardless of sector, is the new Irish government, a formation 5 months in the making. In his first speech, the Taoiseach, Michael Martin, said the recovery and renewal were at the heart of the new government's priorities. Cabinet appointments announced on Saturday revealed a number of changes to ministerial roles, including the appointment of the Green Party's deputy leader, Catherine Martin, as the new Minister for Media, Tourism, Arts, Culture, Sport and the Gaeltacht. The broad portfolio has raised questions about whether each brief will get the attention it deserves, with one Fianna Fáil TD saying that Martin is now the Minister for Normal People and Senior Hurling. Though a number of TDs have expressed disappointment and concerns over the restructuring of the department, the Arts Council has issued a statement welcoming the appointment of Minister Martin. Arts Council Chair Professor Kevin Rafter says, "The arts sector has suffered disproportionately due to the COVID-19 crisis, but I have no doubt that working together, the new Minister and the Arts Council will be able to meet the challenges ahead." Prior to her election to the Dáil, Minister Martin was a teacher of English and music at St Tiernan's Community School in Dundrum and has performed across the country as a classical singer. Many in the arts community are hopeful that Minister Martin will bring her own experience as an artist to the table as we continue to navigate our way out of this global crisis. In further news from the government, the Special Committee on COVID-19 Response convened in the Shannon Éireann on Tuesday. Angela Dorgan from the National Campaign for the Arts appeared before the committee, along with Shane Dunn, Deputy Chairman of the Event Production Industry COVID Working Group, and Elaine O'Connor, co-founder of the Event Industry Association of Ireland. Let's take a look at some of the highlights.
If you find value in Stage Door Live, please...
And then the figure of 1.3 billion is what the events and art industry is worth, and that's mentioned in a number of submissions, and that shows that it's a thriving and viable industry. Another idea, I think it was Epic mentioned the question on VAT in their submission. That VAT on, in this industry is at 23% on labour, whereas in other sectors it's at 13.5%. And has this had any support from the Department of Finance to look at reducing this?
But in terms of the task force, I think an immediate cross-departmental task force like the one that was called for in the Arts Council's report would be really, really useful, and I would think it would be very useful immediately so that this sector can contribute into July's stimulus package. And I know we all want to see the PUP payment extended, and I think a VAT conversation in that stimulus package is essential for both our sector and the wider tourism sector and hospitality sector as well.
EPIC represents about 2,000 SMEs and sole traders within the industry. A lot of the work they do is for smaller community events, stuff, that's much smaller. They do a lot of work for government agencies, for Fáilte Ireland. They do an awful lot of work for businesses that are not VAT registered. So by having to charge 23% on top of their own fee, they just become more expensive and they generate less work as a result. EPIC is a reasonably new group. We're 6-7 weeks old. We've had initial discussions with the department. We expect to sit down with Fáilte Ireland in the coming weeks, but what we don't have is what the hoteliers and the vintners and everybody else has. We don't have a roadmap. We don't yet have an outline, from government. We are available, as I'm sure Angela is, as I'm sure Elaine is, to sit down with anybody and put that roadmap together. But we don't have it right now, and until we get it, it's going to be difficult. It's a business of innovators. That's what we do. We adapt. We do it on a daily basis on sites, be they in a theatre or in a green field. It will recover. Right now, we just need to sustain it so that when it can recover, we still have the staff and the skill set to do that.
There's an enormous skill set in this industry that have the passion, the knowledge, and the enthusiasm to do a very successful job. And as already mentioned, these people are never seen before the stage, they're always seen behind. And it's congratulations to those team of people. And it's something this country doesn't want to lose, those highly skilled people. They're vital to the industry, they're vital to our industry.
What are the real key things that need to be done for you that will enable you to deal with a situation where realistically it could be at least another 12 months before there's any meaningful return to the type of large-scale public events being allowed to happen, because the health guidelines mightn't change until that period of time?
That we need long-term action, and so within our submission we are also calling on the department to build on the great work that has been done in relation to the Arts Council and to commit to allocating 30 million for next year to allow the Arts Council and the funded arts sector to be able to sustain and to survive. But in addition to that, the tax reform and the tax regime incentive change that we're looking for is something that will allow arts organisations who are very busy fundraising all of the time to try and better address the deficits that they will find in other sectors of their business. At the same time, we know that local authorities and regional development is equally important to the survival of the sector. This is not just about central government funding. The local authorities play a massive role in the local arts of all of your constituencies.
If you'd like to watch the session in its entirety, including the opening presentations to the committee, we'll include a link to the full video in the show notes after tonight's episode. On the subject of coronavirus, although Ireland has now officially entered phase 3 of the lockdown exit strategy, artists and arts workers in the UK are voicing their concerns about a new 5-stage roadmap to recovery for theatres and other arts centres. John Morgan, Director of Theatres Trust, has said that without a timeframe for audiences' readmittance to performances, theatres will not be able to effectively plan for their reopenings. This exit strategy was announced at the end of a week, which saw widespread redundancies at venues throughout the UK as a direct result of income loss due to coronavirus. The day after the roadmap was released, findings from a survey of members of the Association of Lighting Designers was published, showing that more than 40% of lighting professionals are not sure if they will return to the industry following COVID-19. Of the 197 members polled, 87% are not confident that their confirmed work for the remainder of the year will go ahead as planned. And the UK aren't the only ones taking a blow this week. In the US, the Broadway League has announced that the Broadway shutdown has been extended again until at least early January 2021. Although no exact dates for productions have been released, many shows are now offering patrons refunds or ticket exchanges for shows booked through January 3rd. The shutdown has pushed many shows to abandon their plans entirely, while others are planning for opening dates as much as a year later than originally planned. More bad news from North America, as Montreal-based Cirque du Soleil has filed for bankruptcy, which they have stated is a result of immense disruption and forced show closures as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The company is hoping to restructure nearly $1 billion of debt with assistance from the Canadian government and private equity firms. In the meantime, in an effort to stem financial losses, they have laid off roughly 3,500 employees. Daniel Lamar, CEO of Cirque du Soleil Entertainment Group, said, "With zero revenues since the forced closure of all our shows due to COVID-19, management had to act decisively to protect the company's future." Following up on last week's coverage of sexual assault and abuse allegations against comedian Davy Riley, Irish social media has been flooded with more accounts from individuals across the comedy, arts and entertainment sectors. Many of these accounts and demands for accountability from venues and festivals which have supported or continue to support performers in question have been accompanied by the hashtag #ReawakenTheFeminists. The hashtag has gained significant momentum on Twitter as more individuals and organisations continue to add to the conversation. Galway Community Pride has issued a statement saying, "We at Galway Community Pride have seen and heard you. We will be strictly assessing the locations we choose to hold our events at, and we will not be making use of venues where our attendees cannot feel safe." Numerous allegations of misconduct have also been made against Bingo Loco's MC Andrew Stanley. No statement has appeared on the Bingo Loco website, but they have responded to the situation on social media, saying, "Bingo Loco is aware an allegation regarding a former employee. Bingo Loco is working with external agencies to develop protocols which will strengthen our reporting procedures and to ensure all of our team members follow transparent anti-harassment practices. We'll continue to cover these stories as they develop." Now to wrap up our news today with a few opportunities. The Arts Council Bursary Awards are now open for application across all art forms, including theatre, arts, participation, dance, music, opera, and more. For our viewers in the UK, a new opportunity for young writers has been launched by The One Show and the Shakespeare North Playhouse. As you write it, your play on stage is open to writers 7 to 16 years old and offers finalists a chance to work with professionals to develop their play ideas into a complete script. And finally, particularly appropriate for this episode, Youth Theatre Ireland are seeking to engage a producer to lead and deliver on their 2020 to 2021 programme. That application closes on the 8th of July, so do check out our show description later this evening for links to more information on all of the opportunities mentioned in tonight's episode.
If you find value in Stage Door Live, please help us grow by letting your friends and followers know. If you're watching on Facebook, hit that follow button and give us a like. Take a moment to share this live feed with your friends and followers right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel and click that bell to keep updated on our new and exclusive YouTube content. Your support helps us continue these important conversations about Irish theatre, now and into the future.
Be sure to stay tuned to our social media throughout the week for updated headlines, and to our website for Hilary Dominski's blog, The News That Didn't Make It, for additional headlines that didn't make the live show. If we missed anything, please do send us your press releases and suggestions to news@theatremaker.ie or slide into our DMs on social media. And now, our hot topic. Experience in the arts across festivals, film production and youth arts, including as a youth theatre facilitator. Veronica Coburn is the Artistic Director of the National Youth Theatre Ensemble. She has a number of areas of expertise, including theatre of clown, participatory art practice, and the development of a national culture of theatre in the young adult population. She was a founder member of Barabbas Theatre Company and is also the programme director of Tenderfoot at the Civic Theatre. Welcome to the show, Michelle and Veronica.
Well,
hi.
Hello.
Hello, it's good to have you on. Veronica, we'll start with you. Can you tell me about your journey into youth work and youth theatre?
Yeah, well, my journey into theatre was through youth theatre, and they're probably the words I would use. I would have come into theatre probably in the early 80s, sort of 1983 or so. And back then, I don't know, when I was in school, I ever thought that you could do theatre as a job. And when I was in around 5th or 6th year, I joined Dublin Youth Theatre because Jerry Stembridge, who was a teacher in the school I went to at the time, said, you should go there. And because obviously I was terribly obedient, off I went. And I got in. And really, finding myself in DYT was fantastic because I think I found a place where it felt like I belonged. In the way of working. I had done speech and drama when I was a kid and all the rest, but this was different because this was a youth club where they did drama. You didn't do exams, you didn't read poetry. It was about improvisation. It was about putting on plays. And some of the writers that were coming in to write plays, like when I was there, Peter Sheridan came in to write a really gritty urban play about the drug scene in Dublin. So really, it was the 80s. You know, it was a recession, sort of like it is now. And at that time, the general consensus was that, well, you might as well be an unemployed actor as an unemployed anything else. So really, out of that sort of sense of despair, I think, in the early 80s, there was a sense of possibility. And so a whole pile of us came out and sort of thought, and had I not gone to DYT, I wouldn't have thought it was possible to go into theatre. But I came out of DYT and I thought, yeah, there's an audition on, I'll go for an audition. And somebody gave me a part. So I really wandered into theatre. And I thank Dublin Youth Theatre for that.
Yes, it sounds like DYT gave you a huge bout of confidence to go into the theatre world. So that's wonderful. Michelle, can you tell us about your work with Youth Theatre Ireland? How did you come to work there, and what is your role?
Okay, so I'm the director of Youth Theatre Ireland, and we're the national development organisation for youth theatre. So really, my role there is as leader of that organisation. It's also about leading the sector, if you like, and trying to strategically find a path to strengthen and support a healthy and sustainable youth theatre sector, so that you have more people like Veronica, young Veronica, finding their way into youth theatre. So that's the simplest way I can think to describe it. And my journey to this role is it's probably not quite so straightforward. There was no youth theatre in my town when I grew up. There now is. It was set up 2 years after I left, and I'm always very. I live back in my hometown now, and I always have a very personal kind of sense of glee when I see the members of Fracture Youth Theatre in Thurles on a Saturday afternoon leaving the workshop. It gives me a lot of satisfaction. But somehow, despite not having youth theatre, I did end up doing my degree in devised performance in Bretton Hall in the UK, which, if you've heard of it, or many people would know, it very much had a very strong reputation around participatory arts and education, and those types of applied practices. So really the type of work I was doing there set the kind of ground roots for the values that have led me to where I am today, and that drive me in my belief in youth theatre. It really started there for me.
Fantastic. So, you just missed out on the youth theatre then if it started 2 years afterwards.
Yeah, sadly.
Veronica, back to you. You are behind the brilliant Tenderfoot programme at the Civic Theatre. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, well, Tenderfoot, the actual word means apprentice, apprenticeship. So the whole model is one of apprenticeship. So the whole idea is that young people learn about theatre by making theatre. So you learn by doing, and you learn from people who do that. So you don't learn in an abstracted sort of form in a classroom. You don't learn from somebody who doesn't make theatre, but who knows about it. You learn from theatre makers. So they learn about writing from writers. So the core tutors are myself, Gavin Costick and David Kelleher. They learn about design from costume designers, set designers, lighting designers. They learn about music composition, sound composition from music composers and sound designers. They learn about stage management from stage managers. And the whole model really is about young people making theatre. And the core part of it is that the theatre they make, they write. They write the words. And we don't... we ask individual young people to write a play. So we say, you write a play, and you write a play, and you write a play. And every year we get about 18 plays written. From those, we put on 3. We also do a devised piece, which allows us to push form a little bit. And those plays, we put them on in the Civic Theatre in the main space every year. We've been going for 14 years, and their peers come to see it. So really, the model is about saying, what do we do in professional theatre, and how do we do that with young people? Because I think lots of young people, if they go to the theatre with their family, fine, they grow up in a culture of going to the theatre. If not, the only time they go to the theatre is probably through school, in which case the piece they go to see is good for them in some way, is that it's going to shed light on the Shakespeare that's on their curriculum. And I think I do not go to the theatre for those reasons. And I think if I, as an adult and as an artist, if that's the way I respond, why do I go to theatre? I go to theatre to be aesthetically challenged, to be intellectually challenged, to be emotionally challenged, stimulated, provoked, all of those things. And I think that's what our young people should be doing. And I go to the theatre to explore humanity and to understand the world we live in. And I think our young people, they have the need to do that. And so really Tenderfoot is about saying, they're not professional artists because they just haven't reached that stage in their life where they've decided to be professional anything. But it doesn't take away that need we have for art, and specifically the art form of theatre. And so Tenderfoot aims to make that space. And it's really, really important. So in a way, I sort of really, and the connection between professional artists, professional theatre people, and the young people working side by side is crucial, because the work we do in Tenderfoot is it's on the same continuum as professional theatre. It's not a different thing. It's not another thing. You know, it's not young people stuff, or it's not community stuff. It's part. It belongs in the parameters of professional theatre. And the only way we can understand that and develop that is by having places where we we work together.
Oh, Veronica, what I would have given to have that program in my transition year. Oh, you've really sold that to me. I really feel like I've missed out now. You've really immersed everybody in all aspects of theatre there. That's fantastic. On that, can you tell us about the lasting impact of Tenderfoot on those young people and the schools?
Yeah, it's huge. On the young people, it varies. I mean, we do quite a substantial evaluation every year. And what the young people say is they figure out, I think, who they are. They figure out how to think. They figure out that the world isn't about right or wrong. It's about exploration. It's about discovery. And they discover that they are interesting and how they see the world is interesting. And that's really significant, because I think what they do is they come out of it and they sort of think, I matter. And that's a hugely, from personal development, from, in terms of their career, their futures, in terms of their, their souls, that they're really, really important things. What they say to us is that you treated us like adults. You were interested in what we had to say. You wanted to know what we thought. And that's sort of one of the reasons why when we write our plays in Tenderfoot, we never set a theme. We never say, you have to write. We don't say, we afford them exactly the same courtesy that we would do any writer. They can write about what they want, how they want, in any form. And the only thing we do is we hold them dramaturgically accountable. Because if you do that, you keep it all on track. In terms of individuals, really, I think they're very big experiences they have with us. And then I think when the peer audiences come and see it, really interesting. They come and see it and they say, that's our world. That's how we speak. I've never seen that before. If this is what theatre is like, I'll come and see it again. I didn't think it would be that good. They do say that quite a lot. So sometimes we put on a play with a peer audience, and the silence we get in a theatre, because the things being talked about, we've written, or I haven't written the plays, we haven't. The young people have written plays about domestic abuse, dysfunctional families, about teenage love, about going to the depths, about mental health, porn, about sexuality and gender. They write about all that because that's their world. And sometimes they can articulate in a play things that actually the education system is trying to, but it can't talk about, because how do you talk about those things in a class? Because it has to be packaged in that this is the right opinion, whereas this is just about, these are the things that exist in our world. And then in the schools, the effect of Tenderfoot is that a culture of creativity develops in all of the schools we work with. We work with 8 every year. We're increasing this year. We're now working with 18. We're hoping to eventually work with all 34 schools in South Dublin County. So in each of those schools, there's a culture develops where they think that thing happens, theatre happens, our theatre happens over there in the civic. They learn that the arts infrastructure is for them, that the civic is for them. Come in, it's for you. Come in. We're interested in what you have to say in your work. Come and see your world here. And by extension, friends and family. So it has a huge effect on individuals and the school populations, and actually the wider population.
Absolutely. I think it's very, relevant that you're saying that, it's almost refreshing that they're not seeing something that's on their curriculum on the stage. They're seeing something that they've written, that they've contributed to. And I think that's hugely important. And you mentioned how fast it's growing. Do you see, Veronica, it spreading nationally throughout Ireland, this programme? Perhaps?
We've been talking about Tenderfoot should go nationally from about year 2 or 3. And about the 3rd year, we did a mentorship project where we had people in. The problem is finance. It's always finance. I mean, again, at one stage, Gavin costed it, and he sort of said, if we had 5 million, you could have a tenderfoot in every arts venue, like theatre venue in the country. So it's money, but absolutely, it's a rep. I can't say the word. It's a model, so you can absolutely lift it and do it elsewhere. And we're not precious. If you want to do it, we'll tell you everything you need to know. We'll help you. We'll mentor you. All that sort of stuff. It absolutely could. I mean, it's interesting that you sort of say, it all happened so fast. Well, it hasn't really. It's taken 14 years, And the really interesting thing about it is that the reason why we're getting places now is because there has been sustained development over 14 years. We have stuck with it. We haven't gone, we do this project, let's do something else next year. Because every year there's different kids in each of those schools.
And you're seeing very positive results by the looks of things, encouraging results from the kids.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I should say young people. They're not kids. They're young adults.
Yes, young people. Yes.
The K words do not leave my lips.
Okay, me either. Okay, brilliant. Michelle, we're back to you. You're very much connected to the Youth Theatre Network nationally, and so probably in a strong position to answer this question. Why is youth theatre so important in Ireland?
Okay, well, that's a huge question, so thanks for asking it. And I think Veronica alluded to, or actually quite directly, some of that already. I would say it's hugely important for three things. Primarily, it's hugely important for the young people who participate in. And it really isn't an overstatement to say that it transforms young people's lives. And they say that. I've lost count of the testimony that I've heard from young people who, talk about being cripplingly shy, feeling like they didn't belong anywhere, found their way to their local youth theatre, and that changed for them completely. They found their place. And I think one of the reasons it does that is that it's a first interaction with theatre that isn't about a view to learning to be technically educated in many ways. It's about placing the young person as an artist in their own right and focusing on their agency, so that they're not seen as units of potential for the future, but that what they have to say now and the theatre they can make now is valuable. And when you place that level of rigour and belief and confidence coming from professional adults as well in the young person, they really, really flower. And there's a lot of skill in that. And that really relies on very well educated or trained and skilled facilitators. So that's, I think, one of the really big things. And then also and it's hard to summarize, but I would say it's very important for the theatre sector, because although it's all about young people now, you look around you turn over any stone in theatre and in professional theatre, and you find people from youth theatre. Janice at the top of the show was talking about her experience in County Carlow Youth Theatre. I mean, the scene of the young 20-something theatre makers in Ireland, it's littered with, and older, I must say, is littered with theatre. And what's wonderful is that I think there's a certain age bracket of professional theatre maker in Ireland that, DYT, Dublin Youth Theatre, but because of 40 years of sustained development of youth theatre across the country, now you meet people coming from youth theatres from Longford, from Wexford, Carlow, Cork, young people from rural counties, people, like me, if I had been a bit younger, who have careers and are theatre makers, and they haven't had to have that urban background. I think that's really interesting. And then the third thing I would say, I think the importance for theatre as an art form. Youth Theatre Ireland is currently involved in a Creative Europe funded project with some European partners, which has the very grand ambition to establish a European youth theatre network. And we are currently working out how to map youth theatre across Europe, and we've been having some very interesting discussions. And my Belgian colleague, Geert from Bronx Theatre, had some language for what's important about the art form of youth theatre that I thought was really beautiful. I'm going to share it with you because it's language I've been looking for. He talks about the focus on authenticity. And so instead of virtuosity and technical ability, it is the artlessness, imperfection and fallibility of youth theatre where the artistic expression derives from. And I think that, coupled with the approach of ensemble theatre methods, devised theatre, storytelling, all of those types of theatre making, you see that coming through in contemporary Irish theatre. And you can see how people coming from youth theatre backgrounds have shaped contemporary Irish theatre. And I think that can't be understated either. So it's hugely important on lots of levels, socially and culturally.
Yes, absolutely. Michelle, those are all fantastic points. I think we have a question from social media. How do Michelle and Veronica feel about moving forward in youth theatre, especially after COVID-19 and the mental health issues that COVID is leaving behind? We'll go to you first, Veronica, for your answer, and then we'll go back to you, Michelle.
I think what's key is it just has to keep going. We would have had 6 groups of writers, young writers, working online in the early days of the lockdown. And it's really interesting that it's only sort of towards the end that you get little comments filtering through, it was really great to have this, particularly with the mental health stuff. And I think that's a sort of a quote from one of the emails I got. And I think, oh, okay. So, I mean, I think that's the key, is that it's not actually, it's not unique to COVID-19. You know, again, I'm preaching to the, converted really, but it's like the arts aren't flippant. The arts aren't, it's not a marshmallow, and a hot chocolate. It's not, something that it's nice to do if you get a chance to, when all the serious stuff. It's vital, that human need we have to tell stories, to look at stories, to make stories in all forms is vital, and it's vital for all of our mental health, all of the time. So it's not just COVID-19. I mean, the reality is that I think youth theatres are plugging away. The same with, like, we're not youth theatre at Tenderfoot, but like Tenderfoot will happen. It is happening, it's adapting, it's going online until we can get back into a room. I know Youth Theatre Ireland have been hosting these like a forum every week for youth theatre practitioners to come in, and they're sharing skills and saying, how do you do a workshop online? I personally am I've figured out how to play chasing on Zoom. I also know how to play G'day Bruce on Zoom now. Anyone wants to know, just ask me, I will tell you. It's fantastic. So you just adapt, and people are. And I think in terms of the mental health, we'll just have to wait and see. But I think society has it's been a time of reflection. So hopefully we'll take some of that reflection forward, and we'll just take care of each other,
yes.
I think.
Absolutely, that's very true. We have to take care of each other. Michelle, I have a question for you. This year, Youth Theatre is celebrating its 40th birthday. That's a big one. So are there any celebrations afoot?
Yes, there are actually. There were lots of celebrations planned for this year, but we all know COVID-19 has put paid to a lot of the stuff we would have liked to have done. This very weekend, we have our first ever online National Festival of Youth Theatres. It kicks off tomorrow and it goes till Sunday. And that is a special 40th birthday edition. Later in the year then, we will be having our annual conference and seminar. And we will be theming that to really celebrate 40 years of youth theatre practice, and we will be honouring the architect of Irish youth theatre, people like Paddy Dwyer and Emily Fitzgibbon and the late Eilish Mullen. So, and finding a way to bring current young voices into that mix too. So we have lots and lots planned. But I suppose to answer the last question, I think I'd like to kind of say, with regards to emerging from COVID-19, it's a huge challenge for youth theatres. With regards to young people's mental health, we have to get back in the room. the majority of youth theatre is amazingly kept providing a service to young people online. And that has been amazing. But the feedback has been the thing that young people get from youth theatre isn't there. So that moment in a workshop, as a young person, you take a risk in front of your peers and you can feel that visceral sense of support in the room. That's so life-affirming and so self-esteem giving. You can't get that vibe online. It just doesn't provide. So we're really excited to open up. But the youth theatre sector is already woefully under-supported and underfunded. And so it faces huge challenges to open up. And really that's our big hope, is that we can sustain the strong sector we have now through this crisis, as all of theatre is facing that crisis. Youth theatre no less than everyone else. So that's the theme of the day, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Well, you've both mentioned funding as being critical, so hopefully Minister Martin will be good to us, fingers crossed. Okay, so I have one last question for you both, and I hope that you can answer. Here's a challenge for you. Answer it in one sentence, okay? One sentence each. So this is the question. What is your vision for the future of youth theatre, or theatre for young people, as we move towards a better normal, as Tom Creed put it last week? I'll take your answer first, Michelle.
No longer a lottery, available for everyone. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Yeah, excellent. Well done. You certainly rose to that challenge. Veronica, over to you.
Valuing the artistic voice of young people.
Also, very, very good answer. My God, excellent. Okay, thank you so much, Michelle and Veronica, for joining us tonight. That was a fascinating interview with you both and very insightful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Of Activate Youth Theatre in Cork, now working with Graffiti Theatre Company. She'll share with us the importance of youth theatre in her life and what she's been up to in lockdown. Let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Amaya Gillespie. I'm 19 years old. I'm from Cork, in Ireland, obviously. Well, I was part of Activate Youth Theatre for 7 years. I joined when I was about 11 or 12, and then left last year when I was 18. So definitely miss it. It was such a big part of my life for so long. I definitely have loads of highlights from working with Graffiti and Activate. You know, I think I loved doing all the plays that we did. We used to do a play almost every year. I think we did one, almost every year. And I always thought it was so exciting to be a part of a play, you know, and see it go from the pages of a script all the way to on the stage. I also loved all the workshops that we were a part of. We did loads of projects. We did the AB project. I think I just loved how fun it was. It was kind of like a way to escape, which was kind of fun, you know, and very relaxing. And everyone there was lovely, you know, the people we worked with and all the youth theatre members. So I guess lockdown impacted everyone's life. It was quite a change from what we were used to. It was very strange to be stuck inside the house, and I guess in creativity wise it was kind of, you know, there was a positive influence and then it was a bit negative. You know, I started drawing a lot more and doing things I like reading a bit more, watching the movies, all the movies that I wanted to watch, you know, but at the same time it kind of didn't allow me to meet up with people. You know, what I found really difficult was not being able to bounce ideas off people, you know. It's nice to see someone that was outside of the house, you know. I guess because of lockdown I wasn't really able to do anything that involved the theatre until the Cocooned project came along, so that was kind of disappointing. But when the project came along, then it was a nice kind of distraction from the fact that we weren't allowed to leave the house, you know. There's a nest of baby crows on the roof next to ours. I never noticed it before, but Dad said it's been there for years. I watched the mum and dad crow coming and going with food for a good hour the other day. So I suppose the idea of Cocooned came from the amazing talented writer Jodie O'Neill, who wrote all the episodes. She was in contact with Niall Cleary, who was the director, and he contacted me to say that there was a project that he thought I would be a good person to be involved with it, and I really liked it. I guess the idea came from the fact that you know, the theatre, it was kind of a bit up in the air about what was going to happen. We didn't know when everything would be going back to normal, so you know, we thought, you know, everyone was thinking that the theatre and showing the arts would have to evolve and change to an online platform. So the fact that I think Cocooned came from following the story of someone who was in that situation and whose life has been completely changed in one way or another. So yeah, the idea came from the fact that we couldn't leave our houses, I guess. Maybe if he realised we wouldn't be coming back, he might have been a bit more sound about it. "3 minutes is the amount of time it took for the novelty to wear off when Keith came home because Trinity Halls was closing." Actually, maybe 3 minutes is a bit generous there, especially considering the big fake Dublin 4 accent he arrived home with. Dickhead. It was really, really exciting, I think, to work on Cocooned because, one, the writing was incredible and the directing was no, I'm kidding. The writing and directing was amazing. You know, I was working with two very talented people, and I was following the story of someone who, you know, a character who could be seen in the real world. It was a character that kind of stemmed from the situation that we were in, so it was nice to play with that, you know, the fact that I could relate a lot to being stuck inside and having your whole life flipped upside down, so that was quite interesting. And it was kind of fun to play around with how it was filmed, because I wasn't really used to doing anything that was recorded before. So it was interesting to do it without a live audience. I think that was one of the most interesting parts. And there were a few challenges. I think mainly it was one, coming to, you know, kind of wrapping my head around how to film myself, and then also not being recorded in front of an audience, because that's what I'm used to. You know, I was very used to the theatre beforehand and doing stuff live, so it was quite a change when it was just up to me and just me alone in my room recording, and that was a bit strange and a bit different. Yeah, I guess what was also quite challenging was the fact that you know, we had to do everything over Zoom. So we'd get the script, I'd look over it, and then we'd arrange a Zoom meeting. It was myself, Jodie and Niall on the Zoom meeting, and we would just go through the script and, you know, work on it a bit and see where was the best place to put the phone, where was the best place to film myself, and then work from there. And then after that meeting ended, it was like I was left by myself. So it was quite strange not to be constantly getting and giving or bouncing ideas off each other, or not receiving, you know, feedback about what I just did. So that was kind of took a bit of getting used to. I guess after lockdown it would be interesting to go in the direction of filming, you know. I think it was quite a new idea for me anyway. I never really thought that I would be filming myself, you know, and it was quite challenging, but it was actually quite fun. So I guess I'm not really looking to do anything in particular in the future, but you know, I love random projects just coming, you know. It's really fun to just see a work of art progress from the script to the stage or the camera in this point, especially in Cocooned. What inspires me at the moment is seeing people still creating, even though, you know, there are lots of restrictions. I guess it's quite fascinating to see that people's passions haven't died just because they can't leave their house, you know, just because they can't meet up in person. People are still passionate and trying to continue working and doing the things that they love, you know. Whether that's all across the arts, you know, theatre and music and everything, you know. People aren't willing to stop just because the world kind of has, you know. One of the first things I'm going to do after lockdown is completely gone is go to see a play, because I feel like I haven't seen a play in ages and I love going to see live theatre. I think it's an amazing experience, so I'd love to be able to do that. I think that's one of the main things that I'm looking forward to. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Were inspired by you. We'll provide links to Cocoon in the description box after the show. Our next guest joining us is Jack Reardon. Jack is a theatre director from Clonmel, Tipperary. Having completed his MFA in theatre directing at the Lear Academy, Jack went on to assist on Let the Right One In and Look Back in Anger at the Abbey and Gate Theatres, respectively. Most recently, he was associate director on Landmark's acclaimed production Asking for It. Having began his own journey with Stagecraft Youth Theatre in Clonmel, Jack is now the artistic director of the Youth Theatre. Jack, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you on with us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. Cheers.
Yeah. So let's dive in. Can you tell us about your experience of youth theatre and how you came to be artistic director of Stagecraft?
Yeah, God. I guess it all began when I was 8. So I joined Stagecraft back as a kid, and it was funny. I joined and I was the only boy in the group. It was myself and 22 wonderful young women, but at that age I didn't really care at all. And I asked my mom, could she go in and get me to go down to the younger group, because there was boys in that group. And the then artistic director, Shane Dempsey, said no, because I was a breath of fresh air in the room, which he later told me was a lie, and he just needed a boy in the group to do a show that year. So I worked out for the best and stayed in Stagecraft for all the years, saw lots of great people come and go, met some of my closest friends still from Stagecraft. And then kind of around 16, there was a bit of a changing of the guard where I became the assistant director. A few years later, another change, I became the director. And then when I was 21, thereabouts, Shane Dempsey, who set up Stagecraft and ran it for almost 20 years, was ready to hand the reins over. And hence now I'm the artistic director.
Fantastic. And you know, being in a rural setting like Clonmel, how important was youth theatre for you?
It was, to just say it was so important, like, doesn't do it anyway justice. I think not only being from a rural town, but being from a county where hurling is everything and it is in the blood of everybody who lives there. And it wasn't for me. And my mom loves telling the story of I played hurling as everybody had to, and said, "Mom, I'm really good at a lot of things, but for some reason I'm not good at this." And I couldn't understand as a 7-year-old why I couldn't do this thing that my peers could, but I was really good at talking and creating characters. So when I found youth theatre and found Stagecraft, it was heaven.
You never know, you might get the opportunity to play a member of a hurling team on stage or something, or direct it.
Maybe, yeah, we'll find what that play is, yeah.
Now, as a professional director yourself, how does that experience feed into your work with the youth theatre?
I think it's been great. I mean, I'm kind of 3 or 4 years out of the Lear now and had an amazing experience there. If anything, it just allowed me to bring everything I learned, and because when you're a young director, you're constantly learning from assisting other directors or doing right and wrong things yourself on productions. I just got to bring all that back to the youth theatre. So I think, well, I'd like to think at least the kind of standard of things being taught has certainly gone up in the last few years, to be able to bring that professional experience back. And like what I said, what you get to learn from not just other directors, but actors and designers, to be able to give a bunch of kids in Clonmel, Tipperary, an experience like they would in a small theatre or even a big theatre in Dublin is quite special, I think.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you make with Stagecraft?
Sure, yeah. So in the last couple of years, we've always tried to do work that felt real and authentic to young people. I've kind of had an aversion of seeing young people speak words that aren't theirs. They're so alien to them, and it just doesn't feel right. And I think what Shane Dempsey set up and what I took over was, we always wanted to do productions where they felt in control of it, and they felt, this is something that I would say, or these are things that I want to talk about. And as well as that, we've really put an emphasis on kind of original design and original concept. The last couple of years, we've had a great kind of group around musical theatre. And the first thing I always say whenever we start a musical is, I hate musicals, because I don't think they're done right. I don't like saying that, because I think people are so used to what they know and what they think musicals should be. So try and emulate that when they do them. And I don't think there's particularly something wrong with that. But when we do musicals, it's how do we make them ours? How do we make them unique? And how do we say something in particular, even though we're doing Spring Awakening, or we just did Little Shop of Horrors last year? How do we use that story and that platform to say something a bit different than maybe the story that everybody's used to?
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you capture that voice of the young ensemble?
Yeah, God, it's a great question. I think listening to them, it can't be overstated or underappreciated. If you listen to what they have to say or what they want to say, you're halfway there. And I think I've kind of seen, I think everybody has, they've seen those moments where young people are told what to do. And I think in school, quite often they're told what to do or told how to think. And Veronica put it beautifully just before about when you listen to them and when they speak and when they tell their story and they use their words, they've got something to say, and that should never be understated. So by listening to that and again, as Veronica said, holding them dramaturgically to that and trying to make something of their words and of what they say, how do we make that dramatic and make it interesting for an audience? But ultimately, it should be up to them to decide what they want to say and how they want to say it.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. So how has Stagecraft changed, if at all, since your time as a member, and what are your plans for the future?
How has it changed? I think our group size has kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit. You sometimes hit a zeitgeist of a load of young people all coming together and wanting to do theatre, which is wonderful. And then a leaving cert hits and a whole group is gone. And of course that happens, but it's all part of it. We've maintained almost kind of all our groups at the minute. We've got 4 different groups over different ages. And it's really been nice to see those groups maintain themselves for the most part in the last kind of 5 years. Because when you have a group from 10 to 15, you can kind of know where they're at much more and you can push them that little bit more. So I think the kind of standard of work has really increased in that way. And not only from the work that the young people are doing, but we've gotten to bring kind of professional designers down much more in the last couple of years, which has really enhanced the productions and I think really validated their work. A lot of what we've kind of heard from our members was it's so nice that they felt their work was deserving of this kind of bigger stage or this bigger production, which has been really nice in the last few years, that we've really enhanced the production quality or style of it, I guess.
Absolutely. Can you tell, Jack, from like looking at your group, who you think might become the actor or the stage manager or the lighting designer? Can you tell quite early on in a production who has what strengths?
I think sometimes, yeah. I mean, everybody can have a crack at whatever they want in our place, at least. And I think as should be the way. You definitely know the ones maybe from a very early age who are adamant that acting or Broadway is their destiny, and those kids are great because I think they really support the kid who is less confident in those moments, so they get to see the person who's first onto the stage that, wow, if they can do it, maybe I can. And then when it comes to productions, the kid who's hanging out by the lighting desk kind of wondering how this works, you go, okay, I can see where your destiny lies. Yeah. And then you've got a kid who doesn't know that they have it, that they're just there and they're there for the fun, they're there with their friends, but there's something naturally in them that just they get it or they clicks with them. And those kids are always really interesting because they're not always the kids who pursue it at all. And nor should they, if they don't want to. But sometimes you meet a kid every once in a while that you go, if you wanted to do this, you'd soar.
Absolutely. I think Michelle put it beautifully earlier on when she said it was a lovely place a really important place for young people to flower and to develop those skills among their peers. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Jack. It was lovely to have you on.
Absolutely. Listen, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. To talk about inspiring young makers and how she writes for young actors and audiences. Take it away, Amy.
Thanks very much, Kelly. Today I am delighted and excited to be chatting with award-winning playwright Nancy Harris. In 2012, she received the Stuart Parker Award for her first original full-length play, No Romance, which premiered at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. Her play, Our New Girl, premiered at the Bush Theatre London and was longlisted for an Evening Standard Most Promising Playwright Award in 2013, and went on to have a very successful run here in Ireland before being prematurely shut down by the lockdown. She has written extensively for young people, including her reimagining of The Red Shoes at the Gate Theatre, an original musical called Baddies, and a few years ago, Journey to X for NT Connections. Welcome, Nancy.
Thanks so much for having me.
How are you today?
I'm good. It's really, really hot. It's really hot. I'm in London and it is It's about, I don't know, it was 30 degrees yesterday, so forgive me if I'm sweltering here.
So I'm particularly excited to chat to you today because I don't know if any of our team mentioned this to you before, but I was actually one of the original casts of Journey to X, which I mentioned there at the end of your intro.
In
the Connections.
In the Connections programme.
When I was 17 with my youth theatre, we were part of National Theatre Connections, and our first choice play was Journey to X, and we got our first choice. And I played Tara.
Wow. I probably saw it.
Yeah, maybe. And just before the interview, I actually remembered that I still had the poster. So I'm going to show you this here now.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. I love that poster. That's amazing.
So funny little connection there.
That is great.
We'll go on to talk about Journey to X in a minute, but rewind. Before that, could we start off? Could you tell us a little bit about your own experiences of theatre as a child or a teenager?
It was funny. I was thinking about being a child, and I don't have very many memories of going to the theatre, like as a very young child. I think it would have been a real treat, but I'm not sure. I remember feeling, I think until I was a teenager, that going to the theatre was sort of something that I did dutifully, and I didn't necessarily connect to it as something that was for me. I did do drama classes and things in my school, and we did fetches where you recited poetry, and I loved all that. I loved being part of the performance, and I loved the drama. You know, it was brilliant. I loved being in it, probably more than I enjoyed watching it. But I was definitely I wasn't in Dublin Youth Theatre. I wasn't the kind of person that got the lead in the school play, none of that. But I do know that when I was about 14, that was when I had my first kind of wow moment with the theatre. I went to see The Crucible with my dad. And it began as exactly what I thought it would be. It began as like people in costumes, and I was kind of going, oh God. And then I remember being slowly sucked into the amazing story. I remember physically feeling completely terrified and completely gripped. And when it ended, I was just shattered. And I remember thinking, how do you do that? How do you get a whole room of people? How did it do it to me? Because I'd kind of come in like a sulky teenager, not really wanting to see this thing, and suddenly found myself pulled in
into a story.
It sucked me in completely, and I was devastated. And that's when I realized this is so powerful. It's more powerful than the cinema. It's more powerful than anything, because you couldn't hear a pin drop, and I knew that I wasn't the only person having that experience. And so that was my first experience with kind of something mind-blowing. I was about 14.
When did you realize you wanted to be a playwright?
So they're kind of separate, because I think writing for me came much later, actually. I think when I went to college, I went to Trinity and studied drama and theatre and classics, and I think when I was there, I probably would have been more interested in directing. And it was only at the very end that I took up playwriting, and it was much more of a fit. I had always been a writer. I was always somebody who wrote, but I hadn't kind of put it together that playwriting was actually the way to do it. It's funny. I don't know why that is. And then when it happened very quickly. It found me. And then when I realized, of course, I've been reading plays and I've been writing away secretly in my room, and I've been watching plays now for 4 years with a kind of a student eye, trying to learn everything I could. You absorb things. And so when it found me, then I knew exactly, I was like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
But it's quite intimidating, I think, writing a play and sending it out into the world, and you don't know if you have no idea what the response is going to be. Yeah.
Luckily, quite a lot of people care about the stories that you have written. So
thank you. Well, that's good.
Bringing back to my personal connection with Journey to X, the conversations that the play brought up with the young people involved in it and the director which is so valuable at that age. Well, at any age, really. Would you tell me a bit more about writing for young people, and specifically about kind of Journey to X, which was commissioned by National Theatre Connections, and how you might find writing for young voices different, if you do, to writing for writing any other play?
So the interesting thing about that play was the year that I was asked to do it was the Olympics, and it was being held in London. Do you remember that? And so for the first time, the National Theatre asked people to pick a country and write about it. And because I was an Irish writer, they said, would you like to write about Ireland? And I felt initially like, oh God, that's like how, a young person's play about Ireland. And then I said, well, actually, I would really like to write about abortion, because it is illegal, but we know that people travel and it seems to be accepted. And this feels hypocritical to me and troubling. And I felt that there was a lot of pain attached to that journey and that silence. And so I said, look, I'd like to write about it. And they said, well, actually, we've never had a play ever about abortion. So I went off and researched it and researched, this idea of the right to travel and the X case, and then building up the idea of the X factor. And what I decided to try and do was to get into the minds of young people, which is that they, as I remember it, a journey to another country, to go and audition, there's an excitement. And then at the heart of it is this girl who's got a real thing that she's going over for, that no one is really paying any attention. And she herself isn't really valid in her country, or her story isn't really valid. She's sort of crossed out. And there's nowhere for her to take the situation that she's in a way. And so I wrote it to try and kind of convey the excitement and the headiness of going off, and have her sort of as the quiet sort of center of the play, really. But I was nervous because I hadn't ever written for teenagers before, and I didn't know if this subject matter would be, because it was such a specific thing to Ireland to go to England to get an abortion. I was like, is this going to have any relevance? Because Connections kind of goes to so many places. And as it turned out, a lot of places found it very relevant, because actually it turned out abortion was something nobody ever talked about anywhere, whether it was legal or not. And so, but I remember Anthony Banks, who ran the Connections program, he said to all the writers, don't see yourself as writing a play for young people. Don't try and write a play for young people. Just write your next play. Now, this was slightly different because it was about Ireland, but in a way, it was my next play, in that it was something I felt very strongly about. It was the way I would do it, which was hopefully playfully, but actually underneath something very serious. But he sort of said, don't try and be cool or be a teenager or
down with the kids.
There's nothing worse. Like I remember being a teenager, and and so I just tried to write it truthfully, and it seemed to be something that the schools did respond to.
It was a very formative experience. I really like that we're doing this episode on youth theatres, because I think a lot of people that are working professionally in the sector had hugely formative experiences working on plays like Journey to X at that age.
It was a formative thing for me as a writer as well, because we got to work with youth theatres, and to have such intelligence coming back from young people was extraordinary. They were completely mind-blowing, and also it was exciting to me as to what, because I think one of the things about Connections is they ask playwrights who don't necessarily write for youth theatres to write for youth theatre. And it's really interesting to see what do people, because basically you go back to yourself at that age, I think. And the wildest plays come from the most unexpected writers. And because they're accessing something that they normally, in their adult playwriting, I don't really think there's a difference, frankly, between writing for young people and ordinarily, but there's something gets freed up, I think, in the writer, and they go in directions that you'd never expect. It's really exciting.
Young people don't want there to be a difference, I don't think. They don't want to feel patronised.
No,
and
it's just that we forget. I think we just forget what it was like to be young, and what a gift. Exactly, and it's such a gift to be able to go back and go, okay, what would I like to do? What would I like to see? And also, of course, you're writing for your big cast, which you're never allowed to do, or it may mean to play is so much less likely to be produced if you've got more than kind of 4 people. But in this instance, you have to write for a big cast. It's great.
I find it really interesting as well, actually, that when you talked about The Crucible and about how the ending took you by surprise, then looking at the way that you structured Journey to X and how the audience doesn't realise that it's a portion at all until kind of halfway through. You really think that it's just a play about a light-hearted comedy about some kids saving some money up to go and audition for X Factor, and then as you realise that, it draws you in a totally unexpected place. And was that conscious? The influence of predictable and unexpected stories taking you in unexpected places. Do you think that's something that you've?
Yes, I think that I do like to do that. But I also felt nervous with that because I was like, I'm taking such a big subject, potentially controversial subject for young people. And I knew that in certain places they wouldn't touch the play because of what it was about. And so I was like, how do I write this play without being preachy or didactic, but that actually the play feels like it has some real stakes?
And I think that's another great thing about a play like that for young people is, I think at that point in your life as a teenager, you can see things as good and bad and black and white, and presenting complex characters for young people to get their teeth into that have all these different angles and these different shades, I think is fantastic.
Yes, and teenagers are so good at, they're so able for that. They love the complexity. It's because it's that age where you're stuck between, you're not an adult, you're not a child, you don't have full agency, but you want agency. It's quite a dangerous time in a person's life. I mean, I think being a parent, I'm not a parent, but to be a parent of a teenager must be terrifying. And so much risk, but yet for the theatre, so much reward, because they are fearless and they go and they want to break rules and they want to take risks, and it's so exciting. And so I loved working with the youth group, and I really loved writing for that age. I found it really invigorating.
So moving on from Journey to X and Connections, some of your plays, such as Our New Girl, for example, are quite dark and adult in theme, but they have children in the cast. So in Our New Girl, Daniel is only 8. Are there any particular considerations that you have to take into account when you're writing a play like that has a very young person in it?
So again, I just write, and I just write, and I go like, we'll deal with that. And so, I actually first put a child in a play in my first original play, No Romance. There's it's a triptych, and in the very last story, there's an old lady who's in a house in West Cork, and she's being put into a home by her son, who's driven all the way down there from Dublin with his son, and he's really stressed and angry. He's separated from the mother. And he's putting his mother into a home to kind of sort his life out and get her nearby, and not really thinking, what does she want or need? And so he's packing up her boxes, and she's there with her, I think, 10 or 11-year-old grandson. And she sort of tells the grandson her life story. And I'd never seen really a child, certainly in my own work on the stage. And I found it so, when we did the production of that the first time, I just found it so exciting what that dynamic was. This child who was hearing this entire hugely adult story, her life was massive, and kind of witnessing it. And because I think children are so often the witnesses to people's lives, to situations that whether they should be or not. He was sort of more of a listener in No Romance. And then in Our New Girl, that child is very much sort of central and has quite a big part, which was a risk. But every director that's directed it has taken it on and run with it. And again, children, what they're able to do, they're amazing.
Some children can just be so watchable and so natural in a way that it takes an adult so long to train to the point of being as authentic as an uninhibited child can be on stage.
Well, yes, I think you're right. And I think actually you just said that the phrase never work with children and animals always interests me, because I think children and animals, they're in the present. And so they can have a situation where they make everything else look contrived suddenly, because you've got something on the stage that could walk off the stage, that could, most children are very reliable. They're really reliable actors. They kind of do exactly what is asked of them. But there is always that sense when you see a child, that child could do anything. And so suddenly you realize we're in a medium now that we all agree to play by rules. We agree to sit here and watch it. We agree we agree that's the fourth wall. And suddenly you've got a dog running around or a small child on the stage, and you go, will that person agree to the rules? And it sort of makes theatre feel dangerous again, because you realize we're in a live medium where anything could happen. I find that really exciting.
It's thrilling.
It's thrilling. But I think that's one of the things that a child can bring, is that sudden sense of, oh, we're really in the present and there really is a risk. They're very much at the mercy of the adults around them. And they've wild imaginations. They're natural role players and players. And so it always invites something. It actually, I think, working with children sometimes invites both the light and the dark, because that's what fairy tales do. They've got magic, but they're dark as well. And you can't brush one under the carpet. You have to have both. And so I think that's what I really, really enjoy about writing for children, is actually the stakes are high.
Yeah. Young people out there that are just realizing, God, I think I'd actually really love to be a playwright. Would you have any advice for them?
I would say absolutely that they should follow that. And I think the big advice I would have is to trust your own imagination. No matter how crazy you think your idea might be, or you think nobody would want to hear this story, or this feels weird, what relevance does this have to what's going on in the world right now? You'd be amazed that our unconscious and our imaginations are so much more intelligent than we are, in a way, and our consciousness is. And I think no one sees the world the way you see it. So I think I would tell any playwright to really trust their imagination, to write the play, even if they think no one might want to read it, because you'd be amazed. They'll probably write the best play that any of us have ever seen, that none of us would have thought of, because following your own imagination and your own creative interests always end up resonating wider. That's what I think.
Hopefully there is a budding young playwright out there that is listening to
I hope so. We need loads of budding young playwrights. Yeah.
Thank you so much for
total pleasure
coming on Stage Door Live and having a chat with us. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you.
Lovely to meet you too.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you, Kelly. Back to you.
Thank you, Amy. This interview was edited for our live show tonight, but an extended 40-minute version will be available on our YouTube channel this weekend. Nancy discusses musicals, structure, and more in the extended interview. If you're watching from YouTube tonight, you can hit the bell icon to get notifications of all our latest content. We're eager to talk with our next guests this evening. For the first time in Stage Door Live history, we'll be interviewing 3 guests at once. No pressure. Bear with us, we're not sure if it's going to work. Joining us are Tony McClean-Fay, Judith Allen and Laura Flynn. Tony is Artistic Director of Bare Cheek Theatre Company and County Wexford Youth Theatre. He also currently works as a Creative Associate on the Creative Schools programme for the Arts Council. Laura started performing at a young age and joined the County Wexford Youth Theatre at 12. Having since discovered a passion for stage and screen combat, she attained qualifications in different weapon systems, including unarmed, rapier and dagger, knife, broadsword, and sword and shield. She now works as an actor, a stunt performer, and stage combat tutor, as well as a CSM for CrossFit Ireland. Judith is 17 years old and is going into 6th year in Loretta, Wexford. She has been a member of CWYT for the last 10 years and has been in 7 of their shows. She wants to study drama and theatre or acting when she leaves school. Welcome to the show, Tony, Judith and Laura. It's great to have you with us.
Hi, Kelly.
Thanks.
So good to be here.
Hi. Great.
Hello.
Okay, hi. So let's get stuck in. Tony, I'm going to ask you the first question tonight. Have you always been involved with youth theatre in some way, or what inspired you to get involved?
When I lived in the UK in the 80s, one of my first jobs was working for a place called Barnet Drama Centre in East Finchley. And after about a year there, I ended up running the place, which was super. And we had 2 youth theatres. We had children's theatre, and we also had adult theatre. So it was like a fabulous place to learn. I initially started off as kind of centre manager, and then I ended up teaching as well. And I think that was the first time I really got interested in working in youth theatre.
Fantastic. Can you tell me about the relationship between Bare Cheek and County Wexford Youth Theatre and the work that you make?
Sure. We started Bare Cheek around about 1998, with the idea of bringing into Wexford sort of contemporary theatre, which there wasn't a huge amount of around then. So we did that. And then and we also found that there was very little for young people in terms of theatre in Wexford. And around about 2003, we managed to start the youth theatre with the Arts Council support and the local authority support. And I suppose the link between it is the work that the youth theatre do. I think over the the very first piece we did was devised, which was kind of unusual at the time. And since then, we've done a load of Shakespeare, we've done a load of contemporary stuff by loads of different contemporary writers. And I think over the last couple of years, we've done a lot of stuff where the young people would devise something that they'd be interested in, and then we bring a writer in to work with them or a dramaturg in to work with them and script it. And oftentimes to bring that piece of work out into outside of Wexford, say to Dublin or to Limerick or wherever, or even into Europe, we'd have to give it the Bare Cheek Theatre Company title rather than the Youth Theatre title. Purely so the theatres would take it, because they wouldn't really take a punt on a youth theatre show, and so that's probably the kind of relationship we had.
Yeah, why is it, do you think, that people don't take punts on youth theatre shows?
I think it's because youth theatre has this kind of, I suppose, history of being local. I mean, youth theatres are local. So when the work is done and it's on the stage, it tends to be mom and dad and the peers that go and see it. And it's rarely the wider theatre going public that will go and see it. So if you take that piece out of Wexford and put it into, say, Limerick City, well, I suppose the theatre would think, well, no one's going to come and see this, because it's a youth theatre and there's nobody in it that anybody knows. So that's one of the reasons we put it under the youth theatre, under the Bare Cheek Theatre Company banner as such.
Yeah, that seems smart. And with Bare Cheek attached to it, did it bring in the crowds? And obviously, you know, I'm sure they were impressed and encouraged by the standard of the youth theatre show then.
Yeah, it was interesting. The reviews we got for some of the stuff that we did under the Bare Cheek banner, which had the County Wexford Youth Theatre performers in it, the reviews we got, oh my God, aren't they amazing that they could learn all of that? And, you know, it was actually very pedantic stuff, really. But yet at the same time, you know, because of the stuff we were doing was all about the performers and about their stories. It did actually make people sit up and pay attention. I mean, last year we did a piece called, or the year before last, we did a piece about consent, which Judith was in. I'm sure she'll talk about that. The next piece we're doing is about the end of the world and climate change, and we've already started working on that with 10 of the actors from the Youth Theatre, and that's going up in November.
So all topical then, the content that you're making?
It is, because that's what we find, that's what the young people want to talk about. I mean, we're doing a queer version of Romeo and Juliet in the Opera House here in February next year, called
that
Romeo and Julian. Yeah, it's Romeo and Julian. So at the moment we're and that is probably, at the moment we're looking at that maybe being more of a community piece. So the adults, the Montagues and the Capulet parents will probably be played by adults, because in youth theatre you tend not to age people up if you can help it. People should really play within a couple of years of their own age, you know. So if a parent or an older character is required, we'll try and get them from the community.
Yeah, that sounds like a good opportunity as well for the members of the youth theatre to work with other actors within the community.
It is, yeah. We did it a few years ago, and Laura was in that version, that show we did, which was a great mix of professional actors, adult actors, and then the youth theatre members as well. And that sold out, that one. That was a great one. It was a funny comedy, but you know, that worked really well, and that was a really good experiment at the time to do. And we haven't really done much of that since, but now we're going to start doing a lot more of that, because I think everybody learns from it. The older actors are like, they have to raise their game, you know, because the younger ones are off book straight away, because that's their training. You know, I won't direct anyone unless they're off book. That's my thing. Yeah. There's no point. Yeah. So the older actors learn from them, and then the younger actors, I think, learn from the experience of the older ones, how they hold themselves, how they work the stage, and how they work the audience in a comedy. You know, so there's lovely give and take there.
Fantastic. So Tony, what do you think youth theatre's place is in the fabric of our theatre industry? Why would you think it is important, if at all?
It's really important. I think it's really important because it gives young people, certainly in our experience, I'm only really speaking to our experience, but it certainly gives young people an outlet for their artistic. It gives them an artistic outlet to talk about and to experiment with feelings, with issues, with contemporary issues, and through that it builds a lot of self-confidence. Not everybody that goes to youth theatre wants to be an actor. I think some people have said this during the programme earlier on. Not everybody wants to be an actor. We have writers, we have directors all coming through, going into the Lear, going to RADA and so on. And we have writers, directors, and we also have technicians as well, stage managers. But I think it's a great training ground. It's like a foundation in vocational. So when they go on then to study it in college, they've done an awful lot of this stuff. They know the language of theatre through youth theatre. And they have this confidence to be able to say, well, actually, no, this is what I think, and what I'm thinking is important. And I have
That's really interesting.
skills.
That's really interesting that you're saying that, Tony, because I unfortunately didn't get a chance to ever be part of a youth theatre. There just wasn't one where I grew up. And when I started in drama and theatre studies, I really was a little bit shy, a little bit intimidated. It was very new to me, this idea of sharing and being part of something. So I really think you're onto something there with that.
Well, when I taught in
lays the foundation.
Yeah, when I taught in first year GTS there in UCC, which you did, it was really very obvious the first years in university that came from a youth theatre, and the ones who just came from stage school, say. It was really obvious in the room because they had the language of professional theatre and of theatre training.
Yeah.
The ones who had gone through youth theatre had that language. And they had no shame, and they'd no boundaries, and they'd no inhibitions. They'd none of that, because that's what youth theatre does, is kind of gets rid of all of that.
Absolutely. It's a huge advantage by the sounds of things. Absolutely. Laura, now I'm going to come to you. Wow, what a huge list of qualifications that you have, and what an interesting life you must lead. Can you tell me about your time in County Wexford Youth Theatre and then on into the professional world?
Yeah, of course. So I guess I started off in youth theatre when I was about 12, and from there it's exactly what Veronica said earlier. It gave me a place where I felt like I mattered, and it was somewhere where I just really came into my own and started to kind of be able to voice my opinion where it was heard. And it was like, we did a show called Shut Up and Listen to Me, and it was devised by all of us, our entire group that I was in. And Tony was absolutely amazing, and his wife Monica, and they really helped me to grow through my time in youth theatre. And it was from there, like, the teachers in school would be like, you can't be an actor, like, what, you need a plan B, like, this isn't going to work. And I just never felt like there was any other route that I wanted to ever go down. And then we did.
You certainly showed those teachers.
Oh, I really did. I was definitely not the person to stick in a mainstream kind of job, I have to say. But I completely came into my own when we did Once a Catholic, and that was the little company that Tony was talking about there. And I managed to get a bit of a stage combat experience in that with one of the actors, and she kicked the bejesus out of me, and I said, okay, this is what I love. I like this. So, and from there, they kind of encouraged me to go on to study in the Gaiety. And there was a module in the Gaiety which was stage combat, and I literally just found what I was good at and was like, this is amazing. I love physical stuff, so it really kind of helped me get into the knit and grit of theatre, as it were, in there. So my stage combat instructor.
Yeah. To remind us, can you just remind us about your skills? List them out again, what you're able to do, and then tell me what's your favorite one and why.
Oh, okay. So I'm a stunt performer, and in stunt performance you need to have a list of qualifications, especially since I'm part of the Stunt Guild Ireland now, and I've to work towards gaining a whole load more qualifications now as well. But at the moment I have worked and studied weapon systems such as rapier and dagger, unarmed combat. I have a broadsword, knife. I've got what is it? Oh yeah, and God, what's the other one? Sorry, I've been studying eskrima as well lately, through Kempo, through American Kempo. I have to say that's probably one of my favorites. Although through lockdown, it's kind of been quite hard to. I do forms and things, and I teach up here. I teach martial arts for stage and screen combat. So it's not exactly screen combat or stage combat, but it's teaching, like, it's giving people a place where they can learn the fundamentals of martial arts and then put that into their acting and allow that to go on to stage and screen. So it kind of gives them that safe place to kind of learn that. But yeah, I think probably my favorites so far have been fire stunts. So I went off to Denmark to study fire stunts with the European Stunt School. and that was amazing. It's
Oh,
freezing cold,
wow.
but it's amazing, which is good. It's as soon as you start to get hot that you're like, out, that's it. But it doesn't last long, but it's an amazing feeling to have your entire body engulfed in flames and yet you're completely safe. So,
Oh my gosh.
and then wire work, I do really like wire work too. So being able to fly is amazing.
Well, that's one thing that we all wish as kids, isn't it? I wish we could fly it. You're actually doing it, Laura. You're actually able to do it. That's amazing. Fantastic. Wow, very inspiring, very inspiring. I'm sure there's lots of young people watching thinking, I want to do that. So, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, I heard my father saved this interview of Emer O'Grady, who's the first Irish female stunt coordinator in Ireland, and she's fantastic. But I heard an interview that she did when I was like 18 and I was just starting in the Gaiety, and it really kind of gave me a sense of, oh my God, she's like this amazing woman who's gone off to actually, perform and do. She was like a championship high diver and everything, and she was just so inspiring for me. So if I can be that person now for someone else, that'd be amazing too. So.
Wow, yeah, absolutely. I'd say you are. I almost feel like flying off a wire myself now after this conversation, but don't do this. Don't try this at home. Isn't that the expression? Don't try this at home. Unless you're Laura. Okay, so Judith, a question for you now. So you're in youth theatre as we speak. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience?
I mean, my experience in Wexford Youth Theatre has been amazing so far. I've been a member now for over 10 years, I think, and I mean, I've gained so much from my time there. I've had so many amazing experiences, like we went to London a few years ago for props and to go sees, and I've made so many great memories and friends with people I wouldn't really interact with otherwise if they went to a different school to me or just live in different areas. And I feel so lucky to have a place where all sorts of people can openly talk about their ideas and opinions, and it's been very empowering as a young person.
Fantastic. And you've done 7 shows with your youth theatre. Can you tell me quickly what your favourite show was and why?
I think it was one that
I'm not sure. Did you hear that, Kevin? Tony's sound went out on me there. Hello, Kevin? Okay, let's try Judith. Okay, let's try Judith. Judith, what's your answer to that question? What's next?
Well, it's hard to sum it up in one sentence, but hopefully we're devising a play to go on in November, which I'm really looking forward to, and then hopefully do my leaving cert, and then hopefully go on to a career in the drama world.
That's a great answer. Brilliant. And Laura, what's your answer to that? What are your hopes and what's next?
Smashing goals and achieving dreams.
Wonderful answer also. That's a fantastic note to finish on. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, Tony, Judith and Laura. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
If you find value in Stage Door Live, please help us grow by letting your friends and followers know. If you're watching on Facebook, hit that follow button and give us a like. Take a moment to share this live feed with your friends and followers right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel and click that bell to keep updated on our new and exclusive YouTube content. Creating live content is a costly endeavour. If you'd like to help us keep the conversations going, please hop on over to our Patreon page, where you can become a patron and gain access to exclusive patron-only content. patreon.com/theatremakerie. You can find us on most social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube at theatremakerie. Catch additional news, blogs and sector coverage on our website, theatremaker.ie. Watch this space, there's more exciting content on the way from theatremaker.ie.
As important conversations continue to unfold at governmental, institutional and individual levels, one thing has become increasingly clear over the last few months. The arts are an essential part of the fabric of Irish society. And it's not just the brilliantly talented performers who grace our national and international stages. It's the stage managers, the designers, the technicians, the writers, and the numerous other artists and arts workers working tirelessly behind the scenes. Each and every one of those individuals actively contribute not only to the economy, but to our quality of life as consumers of music, podcasts, plays, and so much more. While the coronavirus pandemic has hit all of us in ways we couldn't possibly have imagined, it has also given us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to look at rebuilding our society and our sector to be a more equitable and welcoming environment. And we must remember that as we work to create a sector that better serves its current creators, it also needs to serve generations of artists to come. It may be a cliche to say that young people are the future, but as we've seen in tonight's episode, young practitioners are as valuable to our industry as the most seasoned veterans. Yet, for an important time in their early adulthood, theatre is not a part of their school curriculum. That is a shame. Inspiring the next generation to see the arts as a viable and lucrative career path is essential to ensuring the survival of our world. And that inspiration will only come by offering more and better opportunities for students to learn about and get involved in the arts early in life. It will come by making sure that our first exposure to theatre isn't a school trip to a Shakespeare play. The arts offers a world of opportunity for young people to develop highly specialised skills and to learn how to express themselves and engage with the world around them in ways that will, in turn, shape the world of their future and shape how Ireland itself is perceived by the world, for its cultural values, for its brilliant art, for its immense creative output. So as we all strive to navigate this strange and uncertain moment in time, let's remember that we have a responsibility to shape our better normal, not only for ourselves, but for the wonderful and creative people who will eventually take the reins. That's it for us here at Stage Door Live, but you know where to find us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We do appreciate your continued support. As always, here to leave us with a reading of her own poem, I Am Too Old, is Roxanna McClean. Roxanna is an actor, writer, spoken word artist and drama facilitator. She has worked as an actor for over 20 years and in the last few years has performed her poetry all across Ireland and in the UK. She is a board member for Dublin Youth Theatre and teaches drama. Good night everyone, and we'll see you next week at 7 p.m.
Hiya, my name is Roxanna McClean and I'm an actor and a writer and a spoken word artist, and today I'm going to read one of my poems. It's called I Am Too Old. I am too old for this, for stolen glances, slow dances, second chances. I am too old for love unrequited, for showing up to the party uninvited, thinking I might have a shot if all these other girls would just fuck off. I am too old to cry over a girl or a boy, and then act cute and coy next time I see them, even though my heart is jumping with joy that we are in the same room together, breathing the same air together. I am too old to have crushes. A 30-something-year-old should not have a crush, to gush like some lush because you've had a rush of blood to the head and the heart and other body parts. I am too old to be at home, staring at a phone, waiting, debating whether I should be the first to text, trying to sound crazy, sexy, cool, but not send a sext, overthinking what's best to do next. I'm too old to obsess over who's the first to communicate, to scroll through old messages while I wait, to be truly disappointed and irate when my phone vibrates but it's not the message from the someone. I am also too old for my heart to jump when your name pops up on my screen, for caterpillars to metamorphosize into butterflies in my stomach right there and then like I'm a teen. My heart shouldn't beat so fast over a message. I repeat, my heart should not beat so fast over a text message, especially when that message is usually just, hey. And I should be too old to analyse that all day, in complete disarray because I can't think of one thing to say to my not even bae. I am too bleeding old to be onto a film with someone, but not being sure whether or not it's a date or if they've just asked me as a me. Too old to sit beside someone in a cinema and not have any idea what's happening in this film at all, because all I can focus on is every single movement of the person beside me, no matter how minor, and all I can focus on is me breathing and what's going on inside me head, the breathing, the breath, mine and theirs, every little breath, the closeness of our arms, of our hands and our faces, and I want to look at you, to reach out and touch, but I have no basis for this being a thing, but my heart races and I want to look at you, to turn to you, but my eyes stare straight ahead, my stomach filled with nerves and dread, no idea what is being said, but always aware of the closeness and the distance. And I am too old for that. I am too old to pine when you're not here and act fine when you are. Too old for wishing on a star. Too old for teenage behaviours, for youthful fantasies, for letting imaginations run wild. Too old to imagine arms around me, kisses on my neck, hands touching my face, lips locking, for palpitations, incantation, perspiration, invitation, love, sensation. I am too old for it. I really feel I am too old for it. I'm too fucking old to want to gaze into eyes. I am too old, I am, to act surprised that I will never be too old. To want to be held, I want to hold.